everybody, and welcome. Welcome again to another Words, Women, and Wisdom radio show, streaming live on BBS Radio out of Dallas, Texas. Even though I'm sitting here today in Calgary, Canada, Alberta, base of the Rocky Mountains, a little bit of snow dusting on the ground here, and I'm joined by my guest, who I will formally introduce in just a moment, special guest, Doina Oncel, dialing in from Eastern Canada. Correct, Doina?
Yes, I am from Ontario.
Woohoo! Different temperatures there probably today. Do you have snow?
We have a little bit left over, yes, but I don't want to talk about snow because I'm so tired of it.
I hear you.
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
hear you. So today is going to be an uplifting show.
Yes.
Even though we're talking about today a topic that sometimes can feel like a stressful, heavy topic. So we're going to talk today about revolutionizing teen financial success, a really important topic. Now, if you haven't dived into the Words, Women, and Wisdom radio show before, sometimes we have the opportunity of having a live guest with a dial-in show. And today is live with Doina. So we can actually give you the number. So if you have your pen handy, this is the number that you would use to actually dial in with your questions. You can call 1-888-627 6008. Or if the toll-free number is not accessible, sometimes people in different regions can't get into that, you can dial direct as well. And that number is 323-744 4831, just while we're live on the show today. So keep those numbers handy. I will repeat them again in a few minutes if you missed it. So today we're talking about this important topic of teen financial success. I'm going to just throw out a question to sort of start thinking about for our listeners. Who taught you about money when you were a teen? Did you see some really good examples in your family, with your parents, with your siblings? Were you one of the last kids in the family, or the first kid that was supposed to role model some great habits? What happened in your world, and would you deem your teen financial experience as a success, or is it something that still is carrying over and chasing you now? We're going to get into some of these juicy details with my expert today, Doina Oncel. Doina, if you have not seen her name, she's one of WXN Canada's most powerful women. She was recently awarded the NCWIT Educator Award. I'm going to have you share what that's about in a minute. And also an International Women's Day Award for her commitment to work with diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as her focus on financial empowerment, especially, as I say, for teens. Now, she's helping others to break free from financial stress so that they can step into a financial future that they truly own. She has, with her knowledge, used her own personal experience, and the Words, Women, Wisdom radio show showcases the woman's journey of rising very often from a tragedy to a triumph. What did you learn along the way? What were some of the key steps? How has that shaped your perspective now? Those are some of the topics that we get into, because it isn't about how much money you make. Freedom is not, financial freedom isn't about only the money. It's about other elements as well. And we're going to talk about her story of being buried in, quite a bit of debt. I'll let you share that in a moment. And how everything changed for her after she made one decision to learn, how does money really work? So you may be listening as a parent, you may be listening as a teen, you may be listening because this topic intrigued you, and what Doina's up to in the world intrigued you as well. So she was also a role model in Barbie's You Can Be Anything campaign. Woohoo! Women can be everything. We just had International Women's Day with a huge celebration, so many events across the country. I participated in one, had a little speaking slot on one of those events. And we really can share the critical, important messages, because women make 80, maybe it's up to 90 now, of the household purchasing decisions. So we have a big role to play. So Doina believes that financial freedom is about understanding how money works. Her journey started in survival mode. She started with less than nothing in over a decade, was able to pay off her debt, become an investor, and completely transform her life. And that's what's driving her passion now to share firsthand what she learned with others, especially young people, because habits start early. So, Doina, we can talk about things like compound interest and stuff like that later. However, I want to hear your story. How did you start on this journey and what happened with you personally?
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks for inviting me on your show so I can share what I know with others, because this is really is one of my missions, is to be able to share what I know,
Yeah.
because that's what also helped me. So my story is this. I come from Romania. So when I came to Canada 30 years ago as an immigrant, didn't speak the word of English. I am still learning English 30 years later. And the way that I've seen in terms of how money were managed in my household and my home as a child, my mom would pay all the bills, and if we have anything left over, we pay ourselves. And my dad was a big spender, will spend all the money before he got home, after he got paid. So
Mm,
two different dynamics happening at the same time. It was
right.
very confusing. We never really talked about money growing up. For us was around, you know, money is for those people, not for us. We just have to work really hard to get the money.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we like the message that I got, we're not really deserving of money. So growing up, as I became a so-called adult, a young adult, so when I came to Canada, I was 19 years old. And so, you know, I didn't know how money work in Canada, because so it's one way how money work in your country, but then there's another way how money work in another country. So here
Right.
in Canada, I didn't know really. So I just used my mom's method, was working hard and paying all the bills, but I never had enough, right? I never felt like I had enough. And so, well, I thought I was okay, right? Until I got to the point when I was $60,000 in debt. And, I felt like it was the snowball effect, where instead of coming out of the tragedy, like you call it, instead of coming out of the tragedy, I was getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it, because I didn't understand just the simple factor of paying me first. And what does
Mm,
that actually mean, right? Paying me first as in making sure I have enough money into my savings before I pay everything else. Paying me first as into investing in myself. Paying, what does that actually mean? I didn't really know. So yeah, and because of I was $60,000 in debt. That was 15 years ago. I was
right.
also homeless. I didn't have a place to stay, and I wasn't a teen at that point. But my teen, my lack of education in teen years is, I feel like, is what got me to the point where I became an adult. I couldn't really manage the money, and then now I have teenagers at home, and is having that conversation with them, I think, is super important. And
Yeah.
I've always worked with teens, I've always worked with youth. It's been one of my passions through. I feel like if I get to learn something, I want to pass it on to the next generation, so that they don't have to make the mistakes that I made. And they can make their mistakes, but if I can teach them something so they can avoid certain mistakes, especially the big ones when it comes to you being in debt and homeless, make other mistakes, like wear blue instead of red. I don't know. Right? But make those other mistakes that are not
Get,
so life changing, right? So that's
get a
my.
bad get a bad haircut. It'll grow out.
They will grow out, exactly. But there's some mistakes that are very expensive, or
Yeah.
that can hold people back for a long time. So,
Yeah. It's so
that's.
interesting. You're sharing about your experience with your mom in Romania, and I've shared quite often about my mom. I grew up also outside of Canada. I came about the same age. I came when I was 23
Yeah.
to Calgary. To actually, it was to Vancouver in a role that was hiring and training sales reps. So I started with a passion for communications, and that's continued on into my work today as an executive coach. The lessons that we were shown in our household was mum had a professional job when she was working professional when she met my dad, and then he went to the war and came back with PTSD from World War II, and he just wasn't treated. He was one of the thousands of men that wasn't treated. He got a bullet in Dunkirk, and he turned his personality into, well, he didn't turn it, it turned into a lot of anger and a very, very strict control, because if he had control over things, he felt safe. This is my, psychology 101 now that I've, been working in the human resources field also for 20 years as well, prior to my coaching work. So feeling safe is a critical thing, both mentally, but also financially. So he would give her a very meager housekeeping money. And I remember watching her on a Friday doing menu planning for the week, and literally counting out how many slices of bread do we need and how many, how many carrots do we need, so that she could feed the family on this meager amount of housekeeping money. He took her power because she didn't have a job anymore. She became a stay-at-home mom. She taught him to drive the car, and then he took the car keys and would let her drive the car. He took her freedom. Had she had her own money, it would have made such a massive difference. So the messaging in our house was, money doesn't grow on trees. So don't ask because you won't get. And so my question was always, well, if I don't ask, how do you know when I want something? I'm not going to get it anyway. So at least I have a 50% chance of getting it if I speak up. And that has continued through in a theme when I wrote my best-selling book about how to ask.
Yes.
So some of the messages that you had growing up in your household, were they some of the same things about money not growing on trees, or did you have different key messages that you carried with you?
Oh yeah, money don't grow on trees. Money is like, in order for you to be rich, to have a lot of money, you're probably a bad person. If you're a good person and you do the right things, therefore it's okay to be poor. And it was a badge of honor if you were poor, basically, right? Because you are a good person.
You work hard, and the meek will inherit the earth, right?
Yeah, work hard and do the right thing, whatever the right thing is, and not, not put yourself out there. Don't take a lot of risks, basically. That's what for me, I find like that was the message that I got a lot of times. Don't take the risk, because if you take the risk, then you don't know where you're going to end up, and you're going to be a bad person. And, that reminds me when I started my first business, because I've been an entrepreneur for a while.
Right.
I've had, there was like a dinner conversation, because, is it even safe? It's not safe to start a business. You have to go find a job because that's safe.
Right.
And people have that mindset that there's certain things that they consider safety. Well, for me, I didn't see that as safe. I thought, well, if I go to work, first of all, it's not safe for me to be in a space for 9 to 5 where I can go outside whenever I want to. To me, it's not safe when I can make my own schedule. It's not safe when, I work really hard and I don't get paid enough. Like, I find it that it's not safe that I don't get to actually push myself to the limits to see how far I can go. So I saw safety different than what, and I think sometimes, as you were speaking earlier about, the messages that you got, and now you said that you wanted to ask, right? I feel sometimes when we put in circumstances like that, we want something different. Either we choose to align with everything that's happening with, with the narrative, or we just have our own narrative. It's like, but I don't want that. I know for sure that I don't want that. So,
Yes, I rebelled too.
Yes.
I remember breaking breaking the seal on the bottom of my piggy bank. Right, we had piggy bank to drop our coins into. Breaking the seal and going in there periodically because obviously the messaging there didn't get through. That I was in essence, that was my money anyway. However, the circumstances, we had 2 birthdays in February, 2 birthdays in April in our small family. So we would get told after Christmas, right? You start saving to buy birthday presents for the two people with birthdays in February. Then you save again for birthdays in April. Then you save again for summer holidays. And then you start saving again for Christmas. And so it was like, when do I actually get to enjoy anything other than saving? Didn't feel like fun.
Okay.
So
I personally feel like it's okay to save if you want, if it's for something that you want. I give my kids the same message. I tell them, if you want something, I'm not buying it for you right away. I can give you some money, but you have to save towards it if you really want it bad enough. Now, always saving and not getting anything in return, or for me to tell my kids, you save because you should buy something, you know what I mean, something you don't want, they're not going to want to save, right? But if you choose what you want, like if you want, my daughter, she's like 14 years old. When she was 14, $400 beat headphones, and I'm like I was like, that's expensive. I think that's ridiculous. I don't care how much money you have. Sometimes you have to think, do I even want to pay that much money for a pair of beats that probably break so fast, right? So I said, okay, if you really want that, cool, but you have to save for it. So you have to, you have to decide whether you want to buy something that you want, or you want to save because you need something. This is what I teach. Usually we look at the wants and the needs. I want it, or I need it. And then you want to set some goals, and that's what I do with my daughter. I said, so you want that, cool. Now you want to know how much money you need to save, how much money you have, how much money you need to save, and then you get it. And then when she gets it, she actually takes care of it better than if she buy it for her right away, because they're like, oh well, it's just coming out of my mom's pockets, right? So they value it.
Exactly. They can, teens can get a little flippant when they're given everything without that sense of responsibility being built up as well. So while the financial lessons are so critical, we're also teaching, if we are awake and aware parents, conscious parents, we can actually be also teaching beliefs. We can be teaching habits. We can be teaching what success looks like. And success is a different definition for every single woman I know, right? For some, it's about working part-time or having flexible hours. For others, it's about, the size of their bank account, their own private bank account versus the household account. There's lots of reasons for having the financial goals, and yet there are so many other lessons we can learn along the way out there.
Absolutely. And that's very, very true. People's goals are their own, just like as a way of our fingerprint unique. Our goals are just as that unique. And I know for me, people ask me, like, first of all, how does it feel to be successful? And I don't know, I haven't really achieved it because I have so many other goals that I want to get through. And then the one way that I measure success for me is to be able to do whatever I want with my time, of course, and to have enough money to be able to do the things that I want to do. But the number one thing is to be able to manage my time how I want to, meaning that I don't depend on money from other people. And I also I don't need to have a boss to tell me what I can and cannot do with my time, because that would just you're not going to get the best thing out of me. Oh my God, no. That was not going to work for me. I need to be able to do what I need to do with my time, because I also know when I'm creating, when I'm not, right? Like, so sometimes I know, like, I remember the last job I had, which was, oh my God, almost 10 years ago. I told the guy, I said, hey, I needed a job because I had bills to pay. So I took this job, and I said, but these are my conditions. And I was willing to walk away, even though I needed the money. I said, I need to work from home. I'm coming to the office once a week. And because I didn't have a car then, I didn't want to buy a car for just one job. I said, you're going to pick me up from home, because the office was quite far. It was by transit was about an hour and a half one way. So I was like, I don't want to spend my time on transit 3 hours a day when I could actually put it into something, so, and he was like, but you want so much. I'm like, I know I'm good at my job. So then, for me, that was freedom. And I could have I have had actually jobs that were offered to me that were 3 times more money than for that, but I tune it down because it means I would have never been home, you
Yeah,
know, so I didn't want that. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Success for women in particular, especially single women, or single parents, can be
Mm,
measured in so many other ways other
yes,
than the bank account.
yes,
Although, having said that, it's great to be in that position where, $5 million in bank. What else? Now that we're not worrying about
yes,
anything to do with scarcity, now what's possible, right? And one of my mentors asked me this question, right? What's possible, when you're not only focusing on generating regular income? What's
mhm,
possible? And sometimes we get stuck in that mindset or in a place of scarcity if we've gone through something like you did, right? Where we can't even remember what that, we can't even imagine what it would feel like. Yes, okay, travel more, go on more vacations. What else though, right? So if you're
mhm.
thinking about that question, and I'll put the dial-in number up again in just a minute. If you're thinking about this question of success in life, I also believe that success is about freedom and choice, right? We
Yes,
know that money creates choice. We can have more
yes,
options, right? But just simply going out in nature and asking ourselves a question: what brings me the greatest joy? And then do more of that,
yes,
because it's nothing to do with how much money you have in the bank. It's how does it lift your spirit? How does it nurture your soul? What feels good? What feels
mhm.
expansive in your energy? And we can be in gratitude. I mean, I wrote my gratitudes out this morning, and a lot of them were fundamental things, like I live in a safe country. We have a
Yes. I love my
relatively
plants. I'm
relatively
grateful for
safe
my plants.
political leader, right?
Yes,
For example, right?
yes.
So important. So you completely, in a decade, paid off your debt, you became an investor, you bought your first home, completely transformed your life, and especially with this passion for helping young people, because
Mhm,
you saw firsthand how to take control of this situation, pull the reins back, and really start taking control. So,
mhm.
listeners, if you're curious and you have a question, as we're doing the show, you can dial in. Here's the dial in number: 1 888 627 6008. If that is toll free number is not working for you, you can also dial direct, and that number is 323 744 4831. And depending on who's calling in, we may hear some beeps and blips going on. So let's continue with this conversation. What did you learn that you now share in your work with teens that is maybe the top two or three fundamental lessons, things that are so critical? They're just fundamental and important to learn first.
Ooh, have a relationship with your money. First, actually, first and foremost, know what you want.
Mm,
You have to know what you want. And it is kind of tough. And sometimes it's confusing when you're young, right? Because, you have some people that are middle age and they feel like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, which is fine. But as a young person, just kind of think, where do I want to be 1 year from now? We don't want to think 10 years. We don't have to think 10 years because that's like far, way far, right? What do I want
mm-hmm,
1 year from now? And what do I need to get that? You know, and I like to work with youth and just say, you set a list of goals, like 1 to 3 goals maximum, and
yeah.
then add a dollar value to that. Like how much would it cost? As an example, some people say, I want to spend more time with my friends. Great. What does that actually mean? Do you want to go out for drinking? Because that's why young people do, I guess. You want to not saying like go out drinking, but I'm just saying like socialize.
Yeah.
Socialize. You want to go for dinner, or you want to go on vacation, or do you want to go more shopping with your friends? Like what does that actually look like? So you have to be specific, right?
Mm-hmm,
You kind of figure out like how much does it actually cost for you to achieve that goal, and then you work towards that. Then you have a relationship with your money. Look at your money every single day because your money tell you a story. When you look at your statement, at your bank account. It tells you a story about where you actually spend your money. And then you want to ask yourself, as an example, why? For example, I was working with someone and she was spending almost $1,000 a month on Uber Eats. For one person, that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? And that's when she started working with her, have a relationship with money. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm spending this much money. And then she started to look into it and realize that I am not feeling good about myself. I'm not, my life is not what I want it to look like right now. So then she's decided to change that part, which is, okay, I need to spend more time with my friends. I might want to cook at home. She also realized she has some health issues. And then she was like, okay, so then she changed her life. So as soon as you are looking at your money, like have that good relationship with your money, it doesn't matter what if you spend too much money. It doesn't matter whether you think you save too much or you spend too much or whatever that looks like. Have that relationship with your money and just really take time to figure out where do you spend your money and why do you spend your money there. Then you can probably realize that, oh, I'm doing too much impulse spending, or I'm buying too much, I don't know, too much Uber Eats, I don't know, something like that, right? And then you realize maybe that's not really good. Or I'm having too many subscriptions and I'm not even using them. Instead of actually spending money on the subscription, I will actually put that money towards my goal, the goal that I want to, I want to spend more time with friends, which is I want to go to Bali for like a month. I don't know, something, whatever young people want to do as a family. And
Yeah.
then also, you know, as a young person, I always encourage young people to ask their parents questions about the money, because sometimes they realize like they're activating on behavior that were taught by the parents. And don't blame your parents, because your parents didn't know either. Someone taught them something they didn't know, right? Or something that they have been, you don't know what you don't know. So as a parent, you always want the best for your kid. So as a child, as a young person, when you try to discover your relationship with money and then you want to talk to your parents, ask them a couple of questions, just have an open mind. And then he helps you understand like why they do certain things. For example, why do they always tell you not to spend the money? Why do they always tell you to save? Or why do they always tell you, then you understand where it's coming from. And then you have a better relationship with your parents too, and then you get to decide whether you want to keep that behavior or you want to change it, because you realize it's not working for you, and then you can change it, right? So,
Yeah.
and be open to talk about money, because sometimes people are not really open to talk about money because they're scared. But everyone goes through money issues, right? As an example, when you're mentioning earlier that it's not about a month of money that you make, is what you do with money. I know people that make seven figures and they are paycheck to paycheck, while I know people that make $50,000 and they save $20,000 a year. So
Yeah.
really has nothing to do with the money. So that's why having those conversations about money, you also get to hear from other people how they save their money, what they do with the money, and it gives you ideas of what you can do for yourself, right?
Yeah. I think that, I'm making some notes as you're talking. Awareness, right? I
Mm.
mean, I see this with my coaching clients as well.
Yes,
Excuse me. If there is no awareness
yes.
that this is even an issue, then they're unconscious to it. So
Mhm.
first point of change is always awareness. Oh my gosh. And usually there's a triggering event that has happened that
Yeah,
has caused them to feel it deeply, and something has been done to them, or it feels like that, right?
right.
And so now they're aware, oh, there's an issue. Now they're more likely to want to change because the spotlight has been put on it, whether that's come from another person, it's a universe. I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. So sometimes the
Yeah.
universe is a 2x4 on the head to get our attention. And then just as we have a job that might have SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. And then I add ER on the end to make them smarter. So the E is having an emotional link, and the
Mm.
R is it being relevant, because today's, you know, things are moving so fast. It's
Right.
out of date so quickly, so relevant. So when we have those those smarter goals and we have the awareness, not only is it in that example you shared impacting her wallet, but it was also fast food was creating, a health issue, or she
Yeah.
wasn't feeling good about it. And so putting the spotlight on, okay, so this is not working. What could be even better, right? I have a quote that I put in my book. You'll hear about my book in a minute, but this is just sort of hold it up here, was Women in Wisdom, the Modern Art of Confident Conversations. And when I met with Michael Lozier, who's the author of the Law of Attraction book, he shared with me and gave permission to include in my book his clarity through contrast concept. And so you put a capital T, a letter T down on paper, and on the left side, you put what it is about this particular situation that you don't like. Because very often we're so immersed in the stress of it, we can't think about how do I get out of this? But we know what we don't like because that's gnawing at us. So what don't you want? Get all those things down first, then flip to the other side of the column on the other side of that T, that vertical line, and put down, okay, so what would be better instead? And it's like a kid who plays opposites, right? Okay, you don't want this. What's the opposite of that? Well, I don't want to be micromanaged at work. So what do you want? Well, you want to be given a project and given freedom to execute it by the deadline using your tools and ChatGPT or whatever it is, right? So when we know what we don't want, it's much easier to see what we do want, right? So it's first point of change, as you mentioned, awareness, right? Definitely, encouraging those SMART goals, not listening to the parental messages as the only way, and being willing to talk about money. For sure, it was a taboo topic in the English middle class structure, right? With my accent from London, England, I was not upper class. I was like middle class.
Yeah.
And so you don't talk about how much you earn. It's like you would never dare ask someone how much money they make. Very, very taboo. And so that silence around money is what I grew up with as well. So we do have to break the stigma, don't we? Break those habits.
Well, it's still happening today. We don't talk about money. In North America, I find that to be, first of all, I think we should talk about money as if it's just as we talk about the purse that we just bought, right? Just with about the lipstick that that is, anything that is so-called trendy, we should talk about money. One, because for once, it inspires us. If one person gets to make a certain amount of money, you think, I want that too. Don't think of it as like, you want to achieve your goals. And let's be honest, as much as we think, what is the saying? You don't need money for anything. Yes, you actually kind of do. You need money for things, right? Because it's, what they say, it's, I much rather be sad in a BMW than on a bike. So, right. So, but you kind of need money. The thing is that money are a form of survival. So we should actually talk about money. One, because we get to achieve more, and then we also get to give more. Some people, for me, like I know I want to make a lot more money so that now I can give back. I can donate to charities. I can actually make the world better. I don't necessarily want to make a lot of money just because I want to keep them in the bank, right?
Yeah, you're a social entrepreneur. So
yes, I am. Yes.
Spread the wealth.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I want to help my children. I want my kids to have a good life. I want them to, to have options in terms of their education, or to have options in terms of like where they want to live, because that's like, this is freedom, right? And so for us, if we get to talk about money, it's not going to be so uncomfortable anymore. But also, because I hear someone else talk, as an example, if we have two friends, two young people, right? And let's say you're both, I don't know, maybe 22, 21, 18, just came out of high school. And then you hear, there's this job, and you both have the same education, the same, qualifications, and then you both apply for a job. It's important, I'm think that you need to know how much money everyone makes, because what if one person doesn't make enough, Right now, you're gonna have to go negotiate. Well, I think I should be making just the same as this person. Otherwise, some people could just be, you know, discriminated against, for example. But also, I want my friends to make just the same money as I'm making. Or if my friends make a lot of money, I want to make money too. Because we also, when we have that relationship or conversation about money, you know, another example, you have a group of people and you all want to go somewhere on a vacation, or you want to take a weekend trip, or you want to go on a road trip, right? And so if you don't talk about money, then what if you don't have enough, right? And one person has more than the other person, and they want to do certain things in that road trip. For example, one of them want to eat at a fancy restaurant while you sit there, I can afford that, right?
Mm.
Now having that conversation about money, now you know exactly where you stand, and you might realize, I can't be going here yet. I need to save this amount of money so that when we go, we all have the same level of fun, right?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Psychology, right? Sometimes, we don't believe it.
Mhm.
It's like women in, being in C-suite positions, right?
Right,
We don't believe it until we actually see it. So when we
right,
see a friend who maybe goes to the same school as us, went to the same
right,
college as us, and they're being able to not be, or appear to be anyway, constricted with, when they go into a restaurant, for example, it does cause us to say, wait a minute here, I'm feeling there's something different about what they're
right,
doing that I'm doing. So
right,
pull them aside, they're your friend, and ask them, right? What are you doing differently? Because I'm
right.
maybe not in the same boat as you. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what are you doing? And very often, I think there's much more acceptance now for young people to actually have multiple streams of income,
Right,
right? I
right.
started I started at age 6 as an entrepreneur. When the lady down the road from me, whose little dogs, chihuahuas, got walked every day, and then she suddenly stopped walking them past my window every morning, and I went to see, and she'd broken her ankle, and I
Mhm.
offered to walk her dogs for her, and she asked me how much would you charge me, dear? And I said, sixpence. And that was it. I was an entrepreneur. I was in business, and it just carried on. So at age 12, actually 11, I was doing a paper round. 12, I was working in a retail store part-time. 13, I was the assistant manager. And then it just went on from there. So when we make a personal choice, and for me, it was because I'm obviously not getting any pocket money
Mhm.
or enough pocket money at home, because we have to keep saving for everyone's birthdays,
Right.
holidays, Christmas. So I need to do something about this myself. So I'm going to start my own opportunity to earn. And
Mhm.
then later on, that went into things like rental property and recurring recurring passive income, etc.
Mhm.
But those early lessons are so important. So we're going to go to a short break in a moment. But listeners, I want you to stay with me, because we're going to talk about a course that Doina has created called Money Made. And this is going to be a really interesting part of the conversation. Again, I'll repeat the dial numbers when we come back. But I want to share a little bit about, I've spoken about some of the concepts that I believe all women need to know, which is about having confident conversations, whether those are money conversations, whether it's asking for a promotion at work, whether it's asking for a salary increase. And I've showcased how you have some of those powerful conversations in my best-selling book that came out a few years ago, and it's Words, Women, and Wisdom, the Modern Art of Confident Conversations. So for those of you who are actually watching online versus listening, you're going to see the video. For those of you listening, pay attention, because I will share the link afterwards where you can actually watch the video as well and find out how to get your own copy of this powerful book. Here's the video.
Ladies, a new book is on the horizon. Words, Women and Wisdom, the Modern Art of Confident Conversations. This new book is for women ready to rediscover their inner confidence, take a stand for themselves in life and business by using more powerful language. Words are so powerful and already changed history. On October 5th, the New York Times published a story detailing decades of allegations of sexual harassment against film producer Harvey Weinstein. And numerous women in the entertainment industry found the courage to go public, banding together with a powerful voice that change is long overdue. Even Oprah Winfrey, television network icon, gave a rousing speech at the Golden Globe Awards in January. The media has showcased the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. The Me Too movement is flourishing and all signaling it's time for women's equality and change. I believe it's time to give women the verbal agility to create more confident conversations. Words, Women and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations is the book which provides practical approaches for women to ask for what we really want and receive our request. Hello, I'm Yvonne Silver, certified executive coach and senior HR professional, seasoned in business. I teach women to flourish in business by using more confident language to help empower and engage others. This book is the result of over 35 years of my career, professional career, working in 4 different countries. I've interviewed over 6,000 people in my career for job interviews, executive coaching, for sales and consulting conversations. I've listened to hundreds of women in particular who are looking for a better way to collaborate. They're looking to be asking for what they really want and heard and validated, especially in business. And women often earn less than men for doing exactly the same job. It's 2018. It's time for change. The Modern Art of Confident Conversations explores words we use at home, at work, words that trip us up, elevate us, and encourage us, and when no words are even required. It is about how to leverage the power of words in a positive, in a collaborative and impactful way. Now I work with women entrepreneurs and leaders who are empowering other women and leading through mentorship programs and my coaching, public speaking, interviews, and writing. I'm passionate about women's equality. Why? I grew up in England in a house with a flow of negative comments from my father, which destroyed my mum's dignity until she became an empty shell of the vibrant woman she'd once been, belittled by constant criticism and questioning of her abilities. Through my own life journey and supporting hundreds of female clients, I've discovered critical words to ask to get what we really want collaboratively. I know there are critical links between our language, our behavior, our mindset, and our success in life. Words from a song can replay in our head for hours, and poetry can bring a lump in our throats. I've combined my insights with interviews from influential women, sharing their pearls of wisdom, supplemented with research and reference studies from established scholars. Women are rising up. It's time for women to be heard. Let's use more powerful, positive language and join the rising tide of change. This book is for you, a woman looking to the future, ready to embrace significant positive changes in your life by using more confident language. Eliminate those words that drain your power, add words that energize and invigorate, and shift from ordinary to extraordinary. Just one word can change your life. I believe every woman needs their own copy of this powerful book. It's time for action and time for change. Order and reserve your own copy of Words, Women and Wisdom today.
So as you can tell, the book launched, excuse me, in 2018, hit bestseller overnight. And that was in 2 categories. So very proud of that. And it continues today to be a book where when we talk about social enterprise, for every copy purchased, physical copy, I donate one to a women's shelter foundation or not-for-profit in groups of 10, right? Stacks of 10. And it's now an audiobook as well. So if you're intrigued to learn more, listeners, you can actually pick up a free chapter. And you can do that going to my website, which is Yvonne yvonnesilver.com, YVONESILVER.com. Click on the free gift tab, and you'll be able to download your own copy of Chapter 8, which is the chapter when no words are even required. I'm also hosting this Thursday on the 13th of Thursday, if you're listening to the replay, excuse me, at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. For anyone who has recently downloaded that free chapter, so we've got some context, I'm having a private gathering of confident conversations. That'll be a session at 6 p.m. Mountain Time for an hour. And we'll be looking at, there was an article I wrote in the link I edit on LinkedIn recently about job loss. So stop worrying about job loss, and what can you do to protect yourself from that and seem invaluable. And I included 3 tips in the article. I'm going to share the other 7 out of a special report of 10 on how to be more resilient and confident. And that's going to be on Thursday evening. It's not a public link. It's a private invite from me after you have downloaded the free chapter of the book. And that link is on my website, yvonnesilver.com. Under the free gift tab, you'll see where to connect and pick that up now. So that's what I've been up to in the world recently, leveraging confident conversations. I'm here today, if you're just dialing in, with Doina Oncel. Doina is a founder. She's a social entrepreneur, and she is passionate about revolutionizing teen success with finances. So we're going to talk a little bit now about why you created this program called Money Made. And apparently it's 4 weeks, I believe. It's an online course, all designed to help set up teens for a lifetime of financial success. So I'm really interested to hear, what are the core components and what are the biggest lessons that you're seeing teens taking away from this new program you developed?
Thank you for that. Yes, so the course helps teens and their parents with financial literacy. So what they will take away is they will have a really good understanding on how, and I know it's probably going to sound so simple, but it's so crucial how budgets work. Like, how do you create a budget? So it's more of a workshop style where we come in online, and then I have created a budget spreadsheet. You don't need to go buy or subscribe to apps, because there are some out there and it costs you money. So I created a spreadsheet that you just enter your dollar amounts and whatever you spent on whichever category, and automatically adds it for you. But also it has it adds for every week, every month, and then it accumulates for the entire year. So you can look at your year in review, and you get to see how much money you spend on what and how much money you actually made. So, but I'm just walking everyone through and how to actually create that budget, how to create goals, how to set goals. How do you save money? I also have a savings tracker that I included in, so people can just set up a goal and they can actually track the savings. Whatever you save, it doesn't matter. It's not my goal, it's your goal. So you get to choose. And then
I heard you say something really important, is what you're budgeting versus what you actually spend, right? Yeah. And I think it's really important that we look at both of those numbers, because having a plan is one thing, but how are you doing against that plan? You thought you were going to be able to do this. In reality, though, is Starbucks calling your name every morning for a caramel macchiato or whatever? And how is it actually looking? Because you're right, what you shared earlier, what we see on our bank statement is what we value. We have put money on this expense.
But that's why it takes a bit of time before you actually see that. That's why I walk people through, like, look at your last 1 to 3 months spending, and then that tells you a story. And then we can add, I usually add, I don't go into like, you have a savings goal, so you can put in your savings, but in the budget sheet, you add how much money you brought in, the money in and money out. And at the end, you get to look at it, And then if you want to set up a budget in terms of like what you think you should be spending, after you do this for 3 to 6 months, it becomes so natural that now you see, because this is how you have that relationship with money. You get to look at it. You get to look at your statements. You get to add it to the budget sheet. You get to look at, the how much money you spend and where. And it also categorizes, because 50% is supposed to be for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and paying off debt. So some people don't know that, but I teach that in the course as well. So it teaches about savings, but also I'm so big on money mindset, and I'm talking about the needs versus wants. How do you figure out what is a need, what is a want, and how do you budget for that, and how do you budget for the other? And I'm not the type of person, I do not like it when financial advisor comes like, stop drinking that coffee because now you're going to be poor. A cup of coffee a day, that is, let's say even if it's $5, this is less than $2,000 a year. How is that going to make me poor? Don't take my coffee away from me, because I love coffee. So it's not about removing things from your life. It's like you look at the goals that you have and where you spend your money, and then you figure out where do you want to spend your money next.
Right. It's about choice, right?
Absolutely. But that's empowering versus you're like, oh, stop drinking coffee or stop buying, I don't know, something, whatever you like. You know what I mean? It's not about removing, or minimizing the quality of life. It's about figuring out what you actually want to spend the money on and spend the money on that. I heard a lot from parents. My daughter spends a lot of money on makeup. That's cool. Let's just talk about that. Where is that coming from? And that's what I do in the course. We also talk about debt management. So how, compound interest, like we said earlier, compound interest, if you use it, how do you use it to benefit you? And if you don't know how to use it to benefit you, you'll use it the other way around, which is not good, because you don't want to use it on your credit cards. And because, let's be honest, what happens when you go to university or college? In the first 2 weeks, they have a booth and they want to get you a credit card. But you don't know how to use it, right? And then you end up going, because I remember with my daughter, she got her credit card and then she just get the bill. Like, what do I do with this? You're supposed to get that back. And then I teach them what happens with if you don't pay it back, and how to use the compound interest for you, or you can go against you. And then we also
how do you
talk
make
about
it fun for kids, though? Because you and I can talk about the topic, although I think that today, with all of the messaging, there's so much messaging, buy coming from different social media, especially
right.
For kids. How do we make this fun and interesting and incent them to actually get started on it?
It's the needs versus wants. Like, and then again, it's also choices too. So you have your list of needs and a list of wants. And then you get to choose, like, do I want to put more into the needs or versus the wants? But know that, there's that saying, choose your heart, right? Choose your heart. But see, with young people though, when they get to decide what is their need and what is their want, and as they go along and they get to save money for that or for the other, and then when they get to actually doing it, right? They learn it in a way that it actually is relatable to them. But if you go as a grown up and you say, well, we need money to pay the bills, like my mom used to say to me, we have to pay the bills first. It was never fun like, when money will come, I'm like, this is the one that I got into $60,000 debt, because I'm like, who wants to pay bills all day, right?
Exactly.
It's about looking at what brings me joy, and how one of my students in the past is he wants to save money so that he can buy his girlfriend a nice Christmas gift. That was important to him. So then we worked towards making sure that he, like, how much, like, what kind of gift, how much money do you need? And once you actually work on it, right, it's more achievable. Just like with any goals, you cannot just say, I want to achieve success in life, and then you actually sit down to write how much or what does that look like for you, you're not going to achieve it, right? So the same thing with money and the same thing with young people. It just has to be something that they find it, What I also have is I created a game. It's a conversational piece where kids and the parents, they can either use it, like I think about 20 questions where they can have a games night where it's a really fun way so they can talk about money with the
Love
parents.
to hear that. That sounds like fun. Yes.
So it's just, because that's, so why do we spend money on here? Or, how did we choose to buy, this house versus not the other house? Like, and then it just kind of has that conversation where it creates an environment and a space where parents and kids can have better conversation about money. It makes it more comfortable. And what they just choose to come up with, they have one question and they just have, a conversation, they have a dinner for that day or that week. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's really fun. It's a really fun game. I had really positive results. Parents were like, "Oh my God, like this is the best part of this is one of the best part of the course," because now they know how to actually have conversations with their kids about money,
Excellent. Yeah, it's got to be fun. It's got to be timely and relevant. And when I think about, triggering events, when something is happening, that's like the seed pod that cracks open. Right? There is light now. There is a reason to bring this into the conversation.
Right.
And especially if we have teens and we're taking them to sports or to different activities, we're in the car with them. They're a captive audience to have some of these conversations. And when they have had an experience of something that they saw their friend buy and they couldn't afford or whatever, it opens up a natural reason to have that conversation. So listeners, use triggering events to guide the conversation. And then how do people stay in touch with you, Doina? Because I know you're on Instagram, you have some TikTok videos.
Yes.
Where can they find out more?
So I have my website, doinaoncel.com, DOINAONCEL.com, and that's where the course is. And then I also have the Instagram Money Made course and TikTok Money Made course. And then, of course, I have my YouTube channel, Doina Oncel. So where I put all this fun videos about money and about financial literacy. And, I try to make it as fun as possible. But, I do my best.
Excellent. Well, you are doing a great job. It's no wonder that you received WXN's, one of their most powerful women. And then that recent NCWIT Educator Award, because of the work that you're doing, making it fun, leveraging your personal experience of what happens when we don't have great money habits, but also so important, looking at the whole mindset piece. When we know what brings us joy, we know what brings us success, we know that we can create choice by having wants versus needs. Some of the things you highlighted today, really important. So thank you, Doina, for joining me today. Even though we didn't have live callers by the flood, we had a great conversation. And people can also listen to the replay and they can connect with you personally, doinaoncel.com, through Messenger or through her TikTok channel or YouTube, and find out more about how you can impact your own team's success financially and help revolutionize the team's financial success. Thank you, Doina, for joining me.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was fun. Thank you.
It was fun and informative and educational, all rolled into one, and a story rising from tragedy to triumph, which is the focus for my show. And if you are listening and saying, I need help right now, I need to have more confident conversations like this, please do reach out, YvonneSilver.com, pick up your free gift, and then you'll get invited to a conversation with me personally on Thursday evening this week at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Thank you so much, everybody, and bye for now.